Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is keeping your project on track by leveraging the baseline features of Project 2010. This is the seventh session in Microsoft Project 2010 series, which is being conducted by Mr. B. Sai Prasad, Senior Manager, Learning and Development at Cognizant Technology Solutions India Private Limited. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Mr. Sai.
Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants who have joined the seventh session of the Project 2010 series. So the title of today's webcast would be on keeping your project back on track by leveraging the baseline features of Project 2010. So for those who are joining this webinar for the first time, so we have already completed 6 sessions and the recorded videos of these sessions are available in TechGeek. So let's quickly look at the key takeaways of today's session. First, we'll start with how to set the initial baseline with respect to Microsoft project and how it is important in terms of updating your schedule. Followed by, we will move on to how to identify the impact of change requests as a part of your schedule and cost, and how to maintain different versions of baseline when we update a plan because of change request. So first, let's talk about facts. No project has executed as per the plan. So the plan what we initially prepare would be ideally based on the past estimates and expert judgment. But as you start executing the project as per your plan, you might come across difficulties and you might need to replan some of your activities without affecting your project finish dates or your critical path. So the executing the project is more challenging than the plan what you generally created. So thinking on the same line, there are certain common mistakes that are made by the schedulers or the Microsoft project users. One of the most common mistakes is they don't update the plan, which means the plan is kept static because they assume the plan just reflects what has been approved by the customers. The second mistake is they have more constraints and less dependencies between the activities in your project, which means whenever any of the initial activities planned gets delayed or gets completed ahead of your original estimates, the other activities may not get adjusted accordingly, which means that you have more constraints and less of dependencies. The third common mistake is they ideally update their actuals, which is their percentage complete, how much work is pending, but they don't try to revise the estimate based on the new productivity figure of their team members. So these are the general common mistakes of schedulers in terms of using Microsoft Project. But let's now talk about how these mistakes are connected with the topic what we are discussing. If you closely observe the first mistake, maybe they keep the plan static, which means that they don't have a baseline, which means they don't keep the plan up to date, which means that they will not be able to know where they stand with respect to your project execution. So let's talk about how to set the first baseline with respect to your project. I'm just moving back to my project 2010. So this is a sample plan which you'll be using in today's webcast. I remember on the third session of the series, we talked about creating the work breakdown structure, and we have talked about this attribute or the field called task mode. Task mode is ideally a new feature that was added in Project 2010 that can take one of these two values. It can be either auto-scheduled or manually scheduled. When I say an activity is manually scheduled, which means we, the user, have complete control over the dates, the duration, the work, which means Microsoft Project will not try to calculate this by any way. But when you say an activity is auto-scheduled, which means when we try to revise the duration or the effort or when its predecessor is getting affected, naturally these dates will get recalculated. Now let's take this example. You can see there are a few set of activities which I have, and you can see there are two different icons that are displayed in the task mode. The one that is having the arrow is the auto scheduled activities, and the one that is having the board pin is the manually scheduled task. So now let's say that the first activity, which was estimated as 1 day, now gets revised to 2 days. You would be able to find that the research activity start and finish is not getting adjusted accordingly. The reason is this activity is currently manually scheduled. So in order to fix this problem, I just need to right click and say respect the links. Now when you can see somewhere at the bottom there is another manually scheduled task that is having a similar problem. So I may not be able to respect links every time when there is a conflict. So what we prefer is, when it comes to baselining, it is an approved version of your plan. When I say an approved version of your plan, it is assumed that the start date and the finish date are realistic, which means they should not have any activities that are manually entered, or none of these activities should be manually scheduled tasks. So the first step is, let's make sure that all these tasks are auto scheduled. So I'm just going to change it to auto schedule. Now you will be able to find all my tasks are auto scheduled, and let's quickly validate. You can just go to the view ribbon. You can see there is a filter drop down available. On the filter, I might be able to select which are auto scheduled and which are manually scheduled. So let me go to more filters. You can find there is a filter called manually scheduled task. Let me say highlight. You can see none of these activities are highlighted, which means all these activities are auto scheduled. So which means we are safe to do a baselining. The second question we might have is, so what is a baseline first, right? So when we say baseline, people might say the data what I see on the screen is what I mean by baseline. So why should I do a baselining in project? If you observe the data, the work, duration, start and finish, as you start executing these project activities, these values may change, which means that their actuals might be different than your estimates. So a value that is changing on a continuous basis cannot be called as an approved version. So the first step we need to make is, we need to take a copy of this data and we need to save it in a safe place. So when you say we need to take a copy and save it, it's not that we should save it in a separate file. We are just going to take a copy of these fields, what I have just highlighted, into another set of fields in the same MPP file. So the first step is, we need to understand the view you are now looking at. As you know, the view is the Gantt chart view, and currently the table we are now looking at within this view is the entry table. You can just observe on my top leftmost corner, the small tooltip reads table is entry, view is Gantt chart. So another way by which you can look at your current table is, on your view ribbon, go to the table option. You can see entry is selected. So the entry just reflects your current schedule, which you have planned as of today. So as you start executing the project, the values in the entry table will go across multiple revisions based on your progress. So when we talk about baselining, as I have already mentioned, we need to take a copy of this data, save it in a safe place. So these data are going to be updated into another set of fields in the task table, resource table, and the assignments table. But let's first check whether the schedule is already baselined or not. So there are two ways of doing it. People might either insert columns, okay, they might insert columns to expose the baseline data. The second option I would prefer is, you can just change the table from the entry table to the baseline table. So the baseline table will have set of columns that exposes the baseline data of the current MPP file. So let me click on tables. You can find the current table don't have anything called baselines. So I'm going to go to more tables. You can see the other tables supported in this current view. So let me select baseline and say apply. Now you can see the same set of task names is appearing. The view is still Gantt chart, but the fields that are being displayed are totally different. In your entry table, the field names were work, duration, start, and finish. If you look at your baseline table, which I've just highlighted, You can see the column names read as baseline duration, baseline start, baseline finish, baseline work, baseline cost. So you can see these data are coming from the same MPV file, and currently its values are not updated. So if I want to do the baselining in Microsoft Project, the first check which we need to make is make sure all your activities are auto-scheduled. If not, make sure that you try to do the check, do the resource and the schedule optimization before you get the approval from the customer. Once the customer has approved, the next immediate step you need to do is you need to ensure you take a copy of your data, what you have planned that has been approved by the customer into the baseline. So to do the baselining, you just need to go to the project ribbon. You see there is an option called set baseline. So let me select set baseline. So at any point in time in a project, right, so you might have only one baseline, which is the recently approved one is what we call as the latest baseline. In the set baseline dialog box, you can see there are two options. One is called set baseline, set interim plan. The second option is whether you want to set the baseline for the entire project or for the selected task. Let me park the selected task option later, but let's talk about the first radio button called set baseline. When you say set baseline, we are trying to take a copy of your current plan which you saw in your entry table into the baseline fields of your three tables: task, resources, and assignments. In Microsoft Project, you can have 11 versions of baseline. So this might confuse most of us. We might ask, why should I have 11 baselines if I need only one? Very true. But in Microsoft Project, of these 11, only one is active. The remaining 10 are inactive baselines. So the active baseline is what we call as baseline. And baseline 1 to baseline 10 is just used to store the old versions of your baseline. For example, when you start your project, you will have your baseline and baseline. After a few weeks or a few months, when there is a approved change request and you incorporate the change request as a part of your plan, maybe due to some reason you might want to take a copy of your first baseline and save it somewhere else so that you can either compare it, or you might want to cancel the current baseline and just go back to the previous baseline. So the baseline 1 to baseline 10 is being provided by Microsoft just to have a backup of your old baselines. But remember, baseline 1 to baseline 10 will not be used for reporting or status and performance. It is just used by MS Project just to hold your old copies. So let's do the first baseline. So I'm just going to select baseline, which is going to be my active baseline, and I'm going to do it for my entire project. So let me select entire project and say OK. Now you would be able to observe a few changes have happened on my screen. So the baseline duration column gets updated, the baseline start, baseline finish, baseline work, and baseline cost. So as you can see, when you do a baseline, internally the task table, the resource table, and the assignments table, the plan data gets copied into the respective baseline fields. So you might now conclude that baselining is all about copying data from the entry table to the baseline table. This statement is not very much true. The reason is baselining is not something to do with what you see on your screen. Rather, it is more happening at a file level rather than at a view level. So let me give a small example to explain baselining in a different terms. I'm just going to change my view to the resource sheet. On my resource sheet, you can see there are 3 resources, and this is what my plan data is. So I can now change my table from the entry table to the baseline table here. So I'm just going to change my table here to, let's say, work. Now you are able to see that for the same set of resources, I can see some baseline data there also, which means the baselining is not about what data you see on the screen. It is all about taking a copy of your current plan and storing it in the baseline related fields of the 3 tables. So I'm just going to go back to my Gantt chart. Now we have done our first baseline. So now if you look at your entry table now, the entry table's data, work, duration, start and finish, and your baseline table's data will look alike. Now, Please remember your baseline data, though it looks editable by default, I recommend that don't edit these values. The reason is when you try to revise the baseline duration from 2 days to 1 day or 2 days to 5 days, you might expect the finish date of your other activities or the start date of the other activities to get adjusted. Remember, it will not happen for baseline related fields. The reason is baseline fields are just copy of your data what you saw in your entry table. It's only the fields that are there in the entry table which are calculated ones, which means when I try to revise the duration of my prepare from 2 days to 3 days, you can see that other activities will get updated, but the same will not happen for baseline related fields. Now let me look at the right hand side. You can see currently the bars start with respect to the start date and the bar finishes with respect to the finish date. You might want to look at the baseline data of these activities. To look at the baseline data of these activities, either you can change the table to the baseline table, or you can just right click on your chart area, select the show or hide bar styles, select baseline, and you can see the 11 baselines will be listed here, and where there will be a small label printed saying which baseline was updated, which baseline is empty. So I'm just going to select baseline. Now you can see that below all these blue color bars, you can see there is a small red color bar drawn, just representing that these activities have been baseline in Microsoft Project. So one of the most common mistakes I have seen done by schedulers is they don't do a baselining. They just use the entry table just to reflect what has been planned, and they just update the actual and the finish to record the actuals or revise the estimates. But remember, there are two tables which you have seen today. One is called as the entry table, which you are now looking on your screen. The second is a baseline table, which stores your baseline data. So remember, your entry table will always be dynamic. So as of now, your entry table and your baseline table will look alike because we have not progressed in this project. So Microsoft Project assumes that we are going to start as per your original date and we are going to finish as per your original dates. So this is what is happening as of today. Okay. Now, the second step which I just wanted to tell you with respect to baselining is, whenever there is an approved change request that comes in, you might want to revise your estimates and you might want to incorporate it without impacting the entire baseline. So I'm going to take two different scenarios now. The first scenario is, let's look at, we might want to add a new set of activities which might change the dependencies of the existing task. The second scenario is, one of the existing activity is removed from your project, which means we are trying to descope the objectives. So let's look at scenario one. In scenario one, we just said we are going to add a new set of activities to your project plan. At the same time, the new set of activities may or may not impact your critical path, which means the dependencies may also change. So the first step, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go to my table, and I'm just going to show you this small table called tracking table, because it could be quite useful for you to appreciate how this updating the baseline for change request works. So I just changed my table to tracking. You can see that there are a new set of fields that are being displayed. So you can see the actual start, actual finish, percentage complete, and the other fields related to actuals. But for a moment, I just want you to focus only on actual start, actual finish, percentage complete, and the actual duration. Okay. So let's say the prepare document task is 100% complete. So I'm just going to say this activity is 100% complete. The moment I say the activity is 100% complete, the actual start and the actual finish is automatically calculated, and project assumes that the remaining duration of the task is 0 and your actual duration is same as your estimates. But for a moment, let's assume that this activity got completed, but it took more than 2 days. Let's say this activity took 3 days to complete. Now the moment I say 3 days, you can see the actual duration gets revised. You can see the actual finish date is also getting pushed. Because of this 1 day slip on my first activity, naturally it might have some impact on the start date and the finish date of your other task. So now the next question I have is, how do I know the revised start date and the finish date of your other activities? So if I just go to my baseline table, the baseline table will just have what has been promised to the customer. It will not just talk about my revised start date and the finish date of my other activities. So if I want to know the current estimates on the current start date and the finish date of my other task, you just need to change your table back to the entry table. Remember, the entry table is also called as your current schedule. So now you can see on your entry table, because the first activity got completed, its duration got revised to 3 days, and the finish date got revised. Because of the finish date, the other activity is also getting impacted. So as you can ideally see, based on your actuals, your entry table is always going to get adjusted accordingly. And this is the power of your entry table. So the entry table will not be static like your baselining. Now let's take the first scenario. In my first scenario, let's say that you have to add a new set of activities. For example, let's say that after the approval activity, right, after the approval activity, you might want to have a final approval before you get into the design. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the task ribbon, and okay, so I'm just going to insert a new task. Okay, so I'm just going to change the color of this so that you know this is a new task we have added. And let's say this activity is currently manually scheduled, so I'm just going to make it auto scheduled. So project assumes that this activity can start on the project start date, and by default project assumes this activity can complete in 1 day. So it starts on Friday morning and it completes on Friday evening. But we know that this final approval can happen only after activity 4. So I'm just going to say the predecessor is 4. And let's say that the approval is going to be done by a resource, and let's say the resource is Sai. Okay, fine. So I have done the approval, and if you closely observe, the approval does not have any successor. Okay, so I'm just going to look at my relationship diagram on the bottom. You can see after final approval, I don't have any other activity. So what I'm going to do is, after final approval, let's say that we want to start the design activity. So I'm just going to link these two tasks. Okay. So as you can see here, I have added a new set of activities to your project plan. Okay. Now, you might want to you have added this new activity, very good. But you can see that if you look at your baseline table now, let me turn off my relationship diagram. You can see the final approval is not yet baseline because it's a new task that has been added after doing your baselining. So I'm just going to go back to my entry table. So if you just observe that this is a new task that got added. So the question what we might have is, okay, how do I baseline now? So there are two different thoughts people might have. People might say that I need to baseline the complete project. The second type of people might say I need to baseline only the new task and the impacted activities. So let's take the first thought. For those who say that we need to baseline the entire project, please remember, when you baseline the entire project, what happens is, from prepare document to sign off, all the work, duration, start, finish, all these activities will get copied again to the baseline table, which means that your baseline duration of your prepared document will now be 3 days rather than 2 days, which means you lose your original estimates. And secondly, the slippages that has happened because of that 1 day slip will disappear automatically, because when you baseline the entire project, you might lose track of which activity started ahead, which activity got delayed. So the first step what we need to do is, before we start adding a new activity, we need to take a copy of your baselining. So I'm just going to undo these changes what I've done. So the first step what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a backup of my current baseline, okay? So that, let's say after doing the scenario, if we change our mind, we can always revert to the different baseline. So how do I take a backup of my current baseline? Go to the project ribbon, go to the set baseline. Now you need to select the second radio button called set interim plan. So as the name says, it is not a baselining we are doing. We are just trying to take a copy of a set of data into another set of fields in your same file. So I'm just going to say copy baseline to baseline 1. So the purpose of me doing this is, after getting an approval of the change request, if the customer changes his mind saying that can we go back to the first baseline we had 2 months before, you can always say copy baseline 1 to baseline, because your baseline 1 will anyway have your old baselines. So I'm just going to take a copy of baseline to baseline 1 for the entire project. You may not observe any changes on your screen because now you are only looking at your entry table, and towards your right the black color bars are just the baseline data and not the baseline 1 data. The second step is, we might want to include this change request now. But remember, before you add the change request, you need to remember what is your current start date and the finish date of your activities. The reason is, after adding the change request and changing dependencies, you might see that there are certain activities that might get delayed because of the change request, and the customer should be aware of that impacted activities. So the first step is, I'm just going to take a backup of my start finish into another set of fields. So let me insert those two fields on your screen so that you can understand it. So the first field I'm going to insert is start 1. The second field I'm going to insert is finish 1. As you can see, these two fields are custom fields. These have been provided by Microsoft for us to store any kind of data. But we are going to use these two fields to just take a copy of your current start finish into start 1 and finish 1. To take a copy, you just need to go to the set baseline again, go to the set interim plan, carefully read through the first radio button. It's a set interim plan copy, schedule start finish. So when you say schedule start finish, it represents the start finish fields into start 1 and finish 1, which is the next set of columns I have inserted. And I want to do it for the entire project so that I can compare it later. Now you can see that start would have been copied to start 1, finish would have been copied to finish 1. Remember, start 1 and finish 1 are not calculated fields, which means if I try to revise my duration here or my work, or if I adjust the start finish, this will not have any impact on start 1 and finish 1. Now with this idea, let me go ahead, insert the new activity. And I'm just going to say the new activity is auto-scheduled. And this activity, let's say that the predecessor of this activity is going to be approval. And let's say the successor of this activity is design. So as you can see, I have an activity final approval. I have set my predecessors and successors. And you can see to your right, this activity is being connected with the predecessor and successor. The second step is, let's say that after doing the final approval, maybe currently if you look at it, there is a sign-off activity. The sign-off activity is currently 4,7. I'm just going to change approval to final approval here. Okay. Good. So I have connected all my tasks, and let me assign a resource to this activity. Let me say Sa here, and let's say this activity will take around 3 days to complete. So the moment you say 3 days, right, so naturally the finish date of this activity got impacted, and you can see the successor activities or the activities that are linked to it, their start date and the finish date is also getting revised. Now, this is what the impact the new activity has created in your current plan. So as you have already seen, doing the baselining for the entire project for approved change request will not work. So you need to incrementally update your baselining. So as you can see now, the new set of activities have impacted row number 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's quite easy to visualize here without looking at start and finish, just by the change highlighting color, that these activities got impacted. But change request will not be so simple like this. You might want to add, let's say, 5 to 10 different activities across different phases of your project because of an approved change request. Naturally, your changes will be distributed, and it's quite difficult to find which activity got impacted, which activity did not get impacted, because you need to share only those activities that got impacted to the customer for approval and review, right? So now I have done it. So the job we have is we need to compare start with start one, finish with finish one. There are two ways of doing it. You can either compare it with your human eyes, or you can also create a custom filter. How do you create a filter in Project 2010? Go to the View ribbon. You can see there is a filter drop down. Choose the option called New Filter, and let me give the new filter name here called Impacted Task. So when you say impacted task, I'm trying to compare start one with start. So I'll say start one, finish one. So start one should not be equal to start, or finish one does not equal finish. Okay, so I'm trying to compare that this filter should highlight only those tasks where start one is not same as start, or finish one is not same as finish. So let me save it. Okay, so I think I need to enter it with brackets. Okay, good. Now I have created this filter. That filter will be listed on top. You can see custom impacted task. So when I apply that filter, it's only those activities that got impacted will be listed on your screen. Now our job is quite simple. You just need to select only those tasks that has been listed by this filter, and go to the project, set baseline, right? So you might now ask that now I have two baseline and baseline 1. Where should I update my 4 tasks? Remember, the 4 tasks will ideally go to your current baseline, which is your active baseline, that is baseline. And you should not go for the entire project here. You should just go for your selected task. Once you have set selected task, there is a small checkbox that gets enabled. It says roll up baselines to all summary tasks or from subtask into the selected summary task. To understand these two checkboxes detail, I'm canceling this option, and let me turn on the project summary task. You can see that currently, if I just look at my baseline table, you can see the overall baseline work is around 12 days. Okay. Now, when you try to baseline those selected activities, naturally the baseline duration of your project summary task should also get impacted. But by default, when you select those 4 tasks, and when you say set baseline and you say selected task, without turning on these 2 options, what happens is only the selected task will get baseline, whereas the summary task will not get recalculated. So it's better that you turn on roll up baselines to all summary tasks, and I'm saying okay. Now you will be able to observe that your baseline duration, the baseline work of your summary, project summary is also getting revised, and also that the 4 tasks that has got added in your project is also getting baselined. So let me remove this filter. and let me change my table to the entry table. Now if you closely observe to your right, it's only activities and the activities that follow that are getting baseline. The activities that are before that are still having that 1 day slippages in your project. So this is how you need to take care of updating a baseline for approved change request. The second scenario which I was discussing was how do I remove an activity because of an approved change request. So when you say remove, right, so people think I need to delete it, delete that row from your Microsoft project. But let's take this example. Let's say that the design activity, okay, so the design activity got removed from your project. So what people try to do is they'll go to the design, okay, and let me show you the baseline table. So they will select design and they will just say delete. But before I delete it, before I press the delete button, I just want you to observe the baseline duration, the total baseline work of this task. So when I remove design, that 8 hours should be subtracted from the baseline work, and if this 3 days, if it was part of my critical path, it should be subtracted from the project summary task. But let's see what happens. When you delete, as you can see, the task gets removed, but you can see it will not have rolled up automatically to its parent. The second problem you have is you don't have any traceability now. Let's say after a few months down the line, when the customer is asking you, or you might want to look at, hey, we had an activity something like this, but that activity is now missing. We don't know what was the estimates we had at the beginning of the project. Naturally, those kinds of questions cannot be answered now because you have done a hard delete. It's very difficult to recover that task now. So what I recommend is don't delete a row like this, like what you do in Microsoft Excel. Rather do it in a very polished way. So I'm just going to go back to my entry table. So on my entry table, let's say if I want to remove my final approval, I recommend don't delete it. Maybe just color code that activity in a different color first. Okay, like final approval, and say, and you can just change the task name if you need, so that people who look at it know that this activity got deleted. The second thing is when you say an activity is deleted, naturally this task duration will be 0, correct? So I'm just going to say it is 0. So when you say the activity's duration is 0, which means that if you look at your baseline data of this particular task, it will still have this 24, which means we still need to have a backup of my old data, which I'll still have, but I don't lose my old data because now it's still available if I take a copy of this current baseline to baseline 1. Okay. The second step is once you have made that activity duration to 0, you can see on your right the activity will automatically get converted to a milestone. But remember, this activity is not a milestone. It is just that this activity got deleted and we set 0. Microsoft project assumes that it is a milestone. So what I would recommend is just override the default symbol of this task. So just do a mouse over on top of this diamond and just double click. Now just change the shape to something else, and just change the color if you want, so that people at least know that this is not a milestone but a deleted activity. Okay. So the advantage now you are having now is, though the activity got deleted right from your current baseline, and still your baseline 1 will have your data. So when I select the selected task, when I apply the filter here, you can see the deleted activity got removed. Right, so when I apply the filter called impacted activities, so it's only this activity got impacted. So I'm just going to select project, set baseline, selected task, roll up to all baselines. So let me change my table to the entry table, and let me reset the filter to no filter. So as you can see, I've not done a hard delete, right? So I just made sure that I reduce the duration or the work of this task to 0 in order for this to work. The second step after you have baseline the project or re-baseline the project is, you might want to look at comparing baseline. So if you look at your current plan, we have two baselines now. One is baseline, one is baseline 1. How do I compare both baselines? So there are two ways of doing it. You can either use the table approach or you can use a chart approach. Let's talk about the chart approach first. The first step is you need to change your view. So go to the view ribbon, click on other views, more views, and select the view called multiple baseline Gantt. Remember, this view will give meaningful information only if you have multiple baselines, which means you have baseline 1, baseline 2, and so on. So let me select apply. Now you are able to observe that towards your left you see the same entry table, but towards your right you can see there are two lines drawn for every task. The blue color line just represents baseline, and the red color line represents baseline 1. So you can see that because of the new change request, right, so these activities got impacted, and this is the new task that got added as a part of your change request. But towards your right, if you want to look at the baseline data, right, so if you want to look at, you have a table for baseline, so you might want to look at baseline 1 data on the other side. So there is no baseline 1 table by default. I recommend you edit the baseline table, or you take a copy of your baseline table. Just change the name of the table to baseline 1. And you can see towards your left, there are a few field names being listed. You can see the field names are baseline duration, baseline start, baseline finish. You can just change it to baseline 1 duration, baseline 1 start, baseline 1 finish, baseline 1 work, cost. So as you can see, I have just changed the field names, and let me change the titles. So good. So let me select OK, and you have baseline 1, and let me say apply. Now you can see in your baseline 1, the newly deleted activity is not part of your first baseline, but it was part of your current baseline now. Now the last step is, after your baseline date, you would have observed that baselining is all about taking a copy of your current plan into a set of fields. So after a point in time, you would find all the 11 baselines are full, right? So you might want to clear one of those baselines. How do I clear it? So just go to the same set baseline option under project ribbon, select the clear baseline option, and choose what baseline you want to clear. So in this case, if I want to clear baseline 1, I select baseline 1 year, I select it for the entire project, and I hit the OK button. Now you can see the baseline 1 table gets reset, and towards your right you can see the red color line automatically disappears. Good. So let's quickly recap what we have seen. Okay, so the first step is, in order to do a first baseline, make sure that you switch all your tasks to auto scheduled, and to view the baselining, make sure that you change your tables to the baseline table. To do your first baseline, go to the project tab, choose the set baseline option, and as you know, there are 11 baselines there in MS Project, but the active baseline is baseline, and baseline 1 to baseline 10 is used only to store the old versions of your baseline. To identify the impacted activities, I recommend that you just take a copy of your start finish to start one finish one. After you have taken a copy, add a new set of activities and create a filter. Through the filter, try to compare your start with start one and finish with finish one using an OR condition. After you have compared these selected or the impacted activities, just update the baseline by making sure you select the for selected task option and not for the entire project. Please remember that if you have a requirement that this activity will have an impact on your project summary or your summary task, total duration or effort, turn on the roll-up baseline option if required. And to view the multiple baselines, just go to the View tab, go to the Gantt chart and select multiple baseline and say apply. So remember, by default, Microsoft Project will display only 3 baselines, that is baseline, baseline 1 and baseline 2. So if you want to look at the other baselines, you might want to customize this through the bar styles option. To clear the baseline, go to the same project ribbon, choose the clear baseline option. So please be very careful when you clear the baseline because you cannot undo it once you have done it. Okay, so just to summarize, baseline is just a set of data that is saved to the same file for tracking progress. You can have 11 versions of your baseline and choose a set baseline option to baseline the project. Use a selected task option in set baseline to either add a new set of activities or remove a new set of activities from your current baseline. Good, so that's what I have. So I'm just ready for questions. So okay, good. So I'm just seeing the questions now. Can we save a baseline before loading resources and later load resources? Yeah. Okay, so let's take this question. Can we say baseline before loading resources and later on loading resources? There is nothing wrong in this approach, but I would recommend that after loading the resources, you might want to do resource optimization, okay? And that too, after loading the resources, your effort, your start date and the finish date of some of your activities might change based on their availability. So I always recommend that only after loading the resources, and getting an approval from the customer is very much required to do the baselining, okay? So baselining is not something what the project manager decides when to do. Once the customer approves your plan, right, so you need to take a copy of your current plan, and the copy is what we call as a baseline. So Veer, I hope this answered your question. Could you explain how to handle an actual work when you want to rebaselining? When you want to rebaseline the project based on the CR? Okay, so this is what I just demonstrated, Dilip. So let me show you that once again. So if you just observe my current plan, right, so I'm just going to change my view to Gantt chart. Okay, so you can see that there are a few activities I have here. So if I want to record my actuals, I just go to the tracking table and you start recording your actuals this way. So when you start recording your actuals, you might find that you might be slipping from your original baseline. At this point in time, when there is an approved change request that comes in, you need to incorporate it very carefully. But remember, when you try to incorporate it, before you try to incorporate it, I would recommend that take a copy of your start finish to start one and finish one. And when you incorporate it, right, when you try to incorporate it, you might find that those activities might need to be accelerated or might need to be delayed, which needs to be as per your original baseline. So I would recommend that if you think that the design sign-off, this should be going as per your original baseline, I recommend that between those activities, you might want to accelerate by making use of the lag field. So you can just say this activity should start by 1 day before, because the revised start date and the finish date is not something what the customer can approve. Maybe you need to do some schedule optimization before you do it. Good, so the next question is, if you're going to do fast tracking and some of the below activities are already as actual start, in this case, how do we define the back filter? If you're going to do fast tracking and so on. Okay, see, if the activity is already started, right, so maybe you just need to, you cannot baseline those selected activities, right? So I would recommend that you need to add a new activity to your project plan, and make sure that for the new activity, you just need to select those new activities and do a baselining. So if the activity has already started, very true, you cannot select that activity as a part of your baselining. But I recommend that when the activity that has already started, its remaining effort is getting revised, I recommend that you put it as a separate task so that you can select that task and do the baselining. Okay. For deletion, should we not use custom fields and tell mark that task as selected? If we do it, can we help in managing the project better? Okay, see, that is more to do with the users. Okay, I don't really recommend whether you need to have a deletion flag or not. I would recommend that any activity that gets deleted, right? So you just need to make sure those activities are having a different name. The reason is when you try to print it, again, right? Naturally, these activities will appear on your reports. So people who read it needs to know that this activity has been removed, because when you try to report it, naturally the custom field will not be appearing in the reports by default. Okay, so the next question, how do we merge two projects for resource tracking? Okay, so we are going to talk about merging two or more projects in the 10th episode. Okay, so I'm just going to reserve this question till the time. Should we not talk about cost baseline? How is cost baseline managed? So the approach is quite similar. So when you look at baselining, naturally in my current plan, I don't have any data with respect to my resource sheet, right? So naturally, let's say that if these activities are having a standard rate, and I just go to the view ribbon, and if you want to baseline it, let me go to the project for the entire project, and let me say okay. Now if you look at the baseline table, you can see the cost will get calculated. So naturally, when you are trying to rebaseline it, right, I would recommend that we just took a copy of start finish to start one and finish one. Maybe you might want to take a copy of the cost column, okay, into cost one, so that you can try to compare which activity got impacted because of a higher cost. Why are we baselining only impacted task instead of the full project? Okay, remember when you are baselining the entire project, okay, so remember this scenario happens only when you have already started your activities. So when some of the initial activities have already started, and actually you can see your entry table will just have the revised start date and the finish date. When you, at this point in time, all your activities will have your revised start date and the finish date. So when you baseline the entire project now, your baseline table and your entry table will look alike, and your performance or your variance will be 0, right? So your project will be shown in green. But actually speaking, it is not. Some of the activities which have started initially may have started late, which means those activities are in red. So it's quite difficult to baseline the entire project now. So that is the reason, before you incorporate the new activities to your project plan, take a copy of your start finish fields into another set of fields called start one and finish one. Then add the new set of activities, and then try to compare start one, finish one with start and finish by using the filter what we demonstrated. So through this way, you will be able to know only those activities that got impacted that needs approval from the customer. And that is the reason why we are baselining only impacted activities. Can we look tracking effort? Okay, so this is there is another question with respect to tracking. We are going to look at in the next episode. Okay, similar to the way we update tasks, if we have to update resources, do we have a no, sorry. So remember, today's topic was not too elaborate in terms of tracking actuals. So the purpose of me going to the tracking table is just to explain you the difference between the entry table, baseline table, and the tracking table. Okay. So naturally, the baseline table is static. Your tracking table contains your actuals, and your entry table is just your current start date and the finish date and the current effort of your entire projects. Okay, so good. So I hope today's session was useful to each one of you. So if you have any questions or you need any help, please drop an email to me. My email address is shown on your screen now. It is sai@sainivas.com. Okay, so there was a last question. In a large project, if we have more than 11 change requests, is there any way to manage it without deleting older baselines? Remember, it is not a mandate that every time when there is a change request, you need to copy baseline to baseline 1. So there is no way to increase the number from 11 to 15. So we just need to ensure that we just take a copy of baseline to 1 or 1 to 2 only when there is a need. Otherwise, don't take a copy of it. Okay. So thank you, guys. So Mohini, over to you.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Mr. Sai. I'm really thankful to you for conducting this webinar. I would also like to thank all the participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the session will be available on techgeek.com on the webinar page by evening. Thank you all. Have a great evening.